Today I'm going to show you a common failure on the Kia Soul, which is the headlights. They can fail either side, left or right, or both. And what happens is actually the headlight connector itself melts. So I didn't want to bore you with taking the bolts out. So these are two 10mm bolts you got to take out. One 12mm comes up here. Pop it. There's a clip on the bottom you got to get out. So you just kind of pop it and get the clip out. Now you could totally unplug this, which I'm not going to do. It's more of a pain in the butt than it's worth. Right here on the back of the bulb assembly, you turn this counterclockwise. This is the bulb cover. Pops off. Then here's your clip. You unclip it, and this is the connector. I don't know if you can see from there, but I'll show you a close-up. It's melted. So I'm going to put this in an orientation where I can work on it. A couple of important things to note is the color coding. If you look at this color coding, it's green, black, yellow. The new replacement connector I have in the same orientation is black, green, brown. Also on this new replacement connector, you'll notice this little red tab. This is a locking clip that this one does not have. So in the forward position, you can't press the tang, it won't depress, and you can't pull it off. You need to pull it back to be able to depress the tang and remove it and install it. So once you're done removing or installing or messing around with it, make sure to push the red tab in so that way it can't come out. This replacement part number is right here. It's Dorman. It's 645-303. I think it's about $8. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this old connector off and crimp this one on. I'm actually going to cut some length out of this one and cut as minimal as I can out of this one while saving the old color code in case I get my orientation wrong, so I can always reference it. And one thing to keep in mind when you cut wires, on this I have it still connected, the battery's still connected, but the headlights are off, the car's closed. I never cut multiple wires at one time. I only cut one wire at a time, and that's just an old habit. By cutting one wire at a time, you'll make sure you never short anything out, never blow anything up. And notice I cut it where I just left a little bit of wire on, a little bit of color code, so I can know the orientation on how to put the new one in, because obviously it has different colored wires. Alright, this is the close-up view. Get you in there and show you what we're going to do. I'm going to cut this back a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and use butt connectors. These right here. They're 14 to 16 gauge, and we're going to crimp this in line. A couple of important things to note. When you crimp a crimp, do the hard part first, where you're going to have a hard time getting in. It'll help you get the crimper in. And on these bulbs, do not touch the bulb filament or the glass at all. Any oil from your finger gets on that bulb, it'll create a hot spot and it'll pop it. So we need to make this about this long, I'd say. Makes it a little bit longer than factory, but gives us some room to work with to crimp. There's strippers built into the crimper, but I don't like using them. Because they're low on the handle, and you gotta. It's inconvenient. Another important thing to keep in mind is when you crimp connectors on, make sure to give it a little bit of a test pull to make sure you got it on tight enough. And if you don't, you're probably going to have to do it again, because you really, once you pull it out, you're never going to get the wires back in properly. But it's better to find out now that you didn't get it all the way in than find out later. Also, when you crimp these, you need to look inside and find the depth of the crimp barrel to make sure you're crimping it right. Because if you crimp it up too high and the barrel's not there, you're not doing anything but crushing the plastic. You're never going to dig into the wire. I like to twist the ends of the wire a little bit. Helps them go into the crimp better. That's a good crimp. Give it a little bit of a safety pull there. Again, I'm going to look manually and set the depth of the crimper on the barrel so I don't wind up crimping the plastic and not the actual crimp connector itself. Bit of a pull, that's good. Set the crimp depth. Test pull, and that's good. So then we're going to do this side. Now this side is a smaller diameter wire, a smaller gauge wire. So I'm going to show you a trick. We're going to actually double this up to help it keep from pulling out of the crimp and to give it better contact. Give it a little bit of a twist, and we're going to fold it and roll it. Gives it more surface area, and it's going to be less likely to pull out of the crimp. This is how you crimp two dissimilar sized wires gauges of wire using a common crimper, a common crimp connector, I should say. Alright, so now we want to make sure we crimp this on the right orientation, so we're going to compare. This is how the connectors go on, and you can see how the other one was melted. It's surprised how it even worked for so long. It's been melted that bad. So brown needs to go to green. So we're going to put the crimpers on green. We're going to set the depth. Notice we're using the blue for the blue crimp connector, and brown needs to go in here. Give it a little pull. It's good. All right, now we're going to look at our next color. Black needs to go to green. So we're going to get on black. Get the depth set right. Push our green in there. Give it a little crimp, a little test pull. It's good. And obviously the last one, yellow, goes to black. When you do this, you need to make sure you don't push the wire too far in, because if you push the wire too far in, you'll get the insulation inside the connector, and you'll actually crimp on the insulation and cause an intermittent connection. So that should do it. We're going to pull the red flag out. Yep, the red flag's out. Plug it in. Click the red flag in so it doesn't, this can't pull back out. And I think we're done. Now we're just going to, before we totally assemble it, we're going to test and make sure it works. And then we'll put it back together the same way we took it apart. Working good. Now we just got to put it back together. Another quick thing I wanted to share with you. So when you put your headlights back in, make sure you line the bolts up with the dirt marks from where you pulled them out. And this will prevent you from having to get your headlights realigned. So make sure before you tighten them down to adjust the plastic back and forth so the dust mark is perfectly covered up by the washer on the fastener you removed. Then tighten it down, and then you're not going to have to realign your headlights. Otherwise, your headlights will be slightly out of adjustment.